Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television, and we're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. Our conversation today is going to be on the oil and gas sector, but we're going to be focusing particularly on the downstream sector. It's still in continuation of our review of what happened in 2013 of key sectors of the economy for 2013. And I'm being joined on the program by the Executive Secretary, Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, Obafemi Olawore. Good morning, Obafemi, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and congratulations to Channels for being the TV of the year.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's all because of people like you. But thank you for joining us on the program today. It's a particularly interesting one we're talking about, the downstream sector, because it affects everybody. And it's also supposed to be one of those industries that contributes majorly to the GDP. But from the figures that we see, it's not been doing that. Now, towards the end of last year, the sector was a center of discussion over the non-remittance of funds by the NNPC to the Federation account. Now, as the Executive Secretary of Major Oil Marketers, what's your view on that?
What we should do is always try to understand how things work. And I'm glad at the end of the day, some clarifications were made that the amount really was not the amount that we were all told, which means that somebody somewhere did not understand how the process works very well. So for me, it's going to be a piece of advice for everybody. If you are not in a particular industry, you try to learn, try to study how it works.
Well, you see, the only way you can understand an industry is if you get information. And so was information readily put out to the public for them to understand what the issues were and why it seemed it played out the way it did?
Fine. But I would want to look at it this way. If you don't get information, was there any attempt to get the information? It's not really my core area. The figures were really about crude oil and non-remittance. So, and it's actually NNPC, not the oil marketers. But I feel as a player there that one should not just look at figures at the face level, face value, and then jump into some conclusions. And I believe that if efforts were made to get some figures from NNPC, some clarifications would have been made instead of giving the impression that so much oil money was not remitted.
No. Okay, so now that we've gotten your thoughts on that, let's also get your thoughts on how the downstream sector fared in 2013.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad. We didn't fare very well. We all came into the year 2013 with some hopes that in the absence of real deregulation, whatever you import, you're going to get the refund. Because one thing is that people should know that the subsidy refund is not dash money. It's what you have paid for and somebody is paying you back because you have been told to sell below the market price. So when that was done, we felt that the least that could be done is just to pay us back the difference, which didn't come up on time. It took a whole long period before reconciliations were done and before we didn't get paid until close to Christmas time. So from the very beginning, there was a lot of problems for us. Banks were on us, looking for the money they borrowed us and adding interests. And then another element was the foreign exchange element. So if you buy a product at 150 to $1, for instance, and then you don't get the money until the exchange rate has risen to 160, it means that you have 5 naira loss. Who bears that?
But all of you know that this is an industry that is full of risk, and so definitely you must have a kind of hedge fund to protect you from such risks.
protection for 1 year. That's ridiculous. I don't think you can do that you can get that kind of protection for a whole year. That is what happened, and that is why we were largely dependent on NNPC. We were important, but we were largely dependent on them for the product, because you can't hedge, you can't do that for the whole year. That in itself has some problems in that. So if it's a matter of 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, yes, one could play around it. But remember, the whole arrangement was based on the guideline that says within 45 days of submission of your invoices, you are going to get paid. But then 45 days passed, 60 days passed, 100 days passed, 150 days passed, 200 and something days passed.
Until it got to December.
Yeah.
No, is that the reason why we seem to be hearing these rumors that, that this hoarding of fuel by some marketers? Let's just look at that one, then we'll go back to the rest of the issues of 2013. Okay. There's been hoarding of fuel by some marketers, and that there's this speculation that the federal government wants to increase the pump price, and so everybody's trying to protect themselves just before that happens, and this has led to panic buying. Like, if you heard the news, my colleague Ayotunde just read this morning, in fact it's been all over the news wire, that the federal government has actually told the NNPC, the DPR and the EFCC to arrest any oil marketer who is hoarding this product or selling above the stipulated price. Why does that always happen in January? Although you've explained that you had issues during the whole year up until December, is that the reason why the public should be made to suffer?
No. That's no reason. And I like to make some distinctions. It's not an oil marketer that increases the price. The pranks are at the retail outlets. And one should look at the dealers instead of the oil marketers. They are two different entities. There is no oil marketer that is going to authorize increase in price and then hoard. None of my members will do that. But that is not to say that in the remote parts of the country, somebody will not want to play smart. I usually get to know about price increases before most people. So, for now, I've not heard of anything. And I don't think it's in the pipelines.
So who is fueling this rumor? Because we've been noticing, you say the remote parts, but here in Lagos, we've been seeing, queues, we've been seeing motorists doing panic buying and the rest of it for the last couple of days. So who is actually fueling this rumor, and why? What do they hope to achieve?
I don't know. I think typically because increases come up in January, many people feel or suspect that once there's a small hiccup in the distribution, it gives the impression that there's going to be some price increases, which is not true. Luckily, there are so many vessels outside that have fuel. Like I said, we got some payment around December, and we immediately went into the importation process. Before then, the stocks had gone really, really low. Very, very low. So if a dealer who gets about 2 trucks doesn't get the 2 and gets only 1, and perhaps doesn't even get that 1 every day, he sits back and says, oh, probably there's something going to happen. So they are all speculations. I don't think price increases are on the table yet. Okay. I don't think so.
Now let's go back to most of what happened in 2013. Another issue that came up was the planned sale of the 4 refineries, and there was also another furore that it generated. From your view, what do you think really are the issues, and why is it like that? Because we know that this is an industry that lays the golden egg, so to speak. Even though, as much as possible, the federal government is trying to diversify away from oil to agriculture and other key sectors that can boost the economy. So why were there so much? Why was there so much concern about the sale of these refineries?
It all boils down to trust and mistrust. If you ask me personally, the refineries should be sold. The process, how it is done, I have my own views. I believe that the government should explain and explain and explain why it wants to sell the refineries. Refineries as they are now are not functioning at the level that we all expect them to function. We hear many times we are doing turnaround maintenance, we are doing that, and money is going, and we are not seeing the effect. And for us in the industry, we believe that the only way to make the refineries function is to change the ownership structure. The government can still have some shares there, but somebody, a private person, must drive the processes at the refinery.
Just like what we had in the power sector.
Yes. Okay. And one of the examples, at the point of just repeating and repeating every time, one of the easiest examples is still the LMA Petrochemicals, which was sold to Indorama. You find a plant that was behaving in a normal, typical government way. And then ownership changed. And the plant is doing very well. The same way, the same number and quality of staff you have in the refineries, once the ownership changes, they will change their attitude and the plant will start working very well.
Because Nupeng actually had a serious issue over this plant sale, Nupeng and Pengerson and the rest of them. So, because we're wondering if we really want to see the industry attain that status that we want it to attain and become competitive on a global scale, we need to begin to see changes, and it has to start from somewhere. So, it really was, a lot of Nigerians were wondering why, there was so much controversy being generated over the sale.
You see, Nupeng and Pengerson, they have a point. And that's why I'm saying government should engage them and explain to them for them to understand. Their point is this: if you sell, and looking at some other units that have been sold, they are not too convinced that something better will come out. But if government continues to explain to them, and then Nupeng is convinced that what happens in the former petrochemical, LMA Petrochemical, can be replicated in the refineries, I think they'll be convinced. I don't think they are against the sale per se, but the process must be transparent. It should be open, competitive, and for me, it could even be international. To bring in people that really know about the oil and not friends that will just come in and get the plant and will not know what to do with it. And at the end of the day, they are either cannibalizing and stripping and doing all sorts of things.
Well, another issue that we know was actually raised last year was the issue of deregulation. And this has suffered a setback severely. Why? Why is it that nobody thoroughly understands what this deregulation is going to mean for the industry, or some people just don't want it to happen?
Exactly. You see, the same word that continues to go through everything: lack of confidence. I believe that government should should let people have confidence in them, should let people believe that what they are going to do will be to their benefit. I support the regulation 150%.
You support it, or does the association?
By association
supports it?
Yes. Movement supports it.
Why?
Okay.
Do you feel that it will kind of stabilize the industry and revert all the anomalies in that industry?
Exactly. Once you deregulate, look at the small deregulation that the former president Obasanjo did. It brought in a lot of investment at Tinkan Island. Okay. And if it is fully deregulated, with of course some rules to play with, The regulation cannot be free for all. You only have the serious ones coming in. But a situation where you leave importation and you don't even put some conditions and everybody comes in, you find what happened in 2011 repeating itself. So deregulation is the answer. How to go about it? Government again must talk to people. Let them understand the advantages and show that in areas where they have deregulated, people are gaining. And that whatever comes in as funds will be used for the benefit of the people.
We'll still come back to this issue of deregulation. Let's take a quick break and catch our breath. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television. We're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria, and today we're focusing on the oil and gas sector with particular emphasis on the downstream sector. We'll be right back.